Ladies and gentlemen of the Kingdom community, today is among the darkest of days we have ever seen in this series. You may have already heard, but it was on this, the first day of the Qin invasion of Zhao, that Yasuhisa has decided to not only give us our first proper glimpse of a battlefield in this campaign, but also to rip away from us not one, but two beloved characters, all in the span of 19 pages, leaving us on one of the biggest cliffhangers we have seen in years. And to make it worse, Kingdom is on break next week, so we are going to be torturing ourselves thinking what will come next. Truly, this is a dark day indeed. But as always, Kingdom fans, before we get into it, remember that if you enjoy this video and seeing plenty of Kingdom content, then remember to hit that like button down below, and while you are down there you should also click that subscribe button with that notification bell so you don't miss out on all the upcoming content. And diving right on into it, so as of chapter 854 we know two things. As expected, the Figo King is leading the charge from the very front, slaughtering all enemies in his path seemingly with ease. Riboku did what he has always done, and that is pull another lethal super secret weapon supposedly out of thin air to use against the Qin forces. And this secret weapon is known as Seikaun, one of the 10 bows of China, and he now has the Figo King in his sights. Now we do get some background information about Seikaun, and I hope I am saying that right. I actually have no idea how it's pronounced, but anyway, after his introduction last chapter we all asked, why has Riboku never used him until now? And supposedly that's simple. The answer was always no. He had no interest to enter the battlefield, he wasn't even sure what his bow really was anymore, but being Riboku of course persuaded him to come onto the battlefield anyway. But it's what Riboku says to convince him that only reinforces my belief from back in chapter 853 that Riboku is seeming a lot more dark and twisted than he has in the past. Seikaun states, "My bow is not for battle. It is just a one-sided, merciless slaughter." To which Riboku responds, "It's merciless, but I think that's fine. A battlefield is a merciless place." Now I know that is true, but between Riboku saying that and his speech before he engaged with Shin, I am certain Riboku is far more merciless than he has ever been. He has always aimed for a certain few individuals on the battlefield so he can keep casualties to a minimum, but now he plans to totally annihilate the Qin forces down to the last man. But that's a discussion for a different day. Going back into the battle, so while Danto is in combat with his sixth sense kicking in, telling him something is off and that he's in danger, and even after receiving a warning from his bird Capro above him, Seikaun's arrow comes out of nowhere and goes right through Danto's neck to God knows where else. And before any of Danto's unit even knows what has happened, he has already fallen off his horse, laying on the ground, choking on his own blood. And not only doing this do we see him struggling to get out words, but what he says just shows us what kind of man he really was. Not only does he command his men, but he has so readily already accepted his fate, saying the wound is fatal. He commands his men to send a messenger to Yotanwa immediately to warn her of a monstrous archer, saying she must not die in vain. She must run away. I mean, imagine the mental fortitude you would have to be able to do that. Be struck fatally out of nowhere, be choking on your own blood, and yet he managed to gain a complete grasp of the situation at hand while all those around him are still in shock. Not to mention he then prioritizes his queen's safety and survival above all else. As far as last moments go, I honestly think this is among the most heroic in the entire series so far. Worst part about all this though is that this is exactly what Riboku planned to happen. He once again plans this scenario to perfection. With the Figo King down, his army's charge on the Zhao lines was almost completely halted, and Shunshuiju had surrounded their force before they even realized it. Making things even worse for them, Shunshuiju fully plans to take absolute advantage of the situation and eliminate the Figo army before they can properly react. Then sends a force between the Figo army and the Bajio army in the center, trying to isolate them even more. Seeing this from the HQ, Yotanwa is then forced to take action, since as far as she knows, Danto is not taking action to stop the Zhao's advance, of course being completely unaware of Danto's current state, which is exactly what Riboku knew would happen. He knew Yotanwa would go to save the Figo tribe because they are one of Yotanwa's biggest and most powerful weapons. Now I don't know how Riboku knew, but nonetheless he knew. With Yotanwa now forced to be in the field of combat, she is of course exposed to Seikaun's arrows, although he did move positions just to be cautious. Now of course to most, she is not exposed at all, but very well protected. She is surrounded by her men, but none are safe from the 10 bows. Once Seikaun has Yotanwa in her sight, he draws his bow, and this is actually hard to say, he pierces Yotanwa right through her chest from behind. And what does Hara do? The last thing he does is give us a close-up of Yotanwa's face, and the light has already left her eyes. Now, needless to say, this is infuriating for so many reasons, be it that Hara is torturing us with that ending and a break next week, or be it the fact that it took Hara a full year to kill Kanki, but it took him 1 chapter to kill off Yotanwa, someone that has been with us since the very beginning. And yes, I know Yotanwa has taken up more of a support role over the years and has never really been in the spotlight in past campaigns, but she is still one of the Qin's 6 great generals. She is still the person that has saved Qin from being toppled by the coalition. She is still the person that stopped a royal coup. She is still the person that defeated Rozo and has stood by Qin and time again while having zero obligation to do so. I am sorry, but this is just Hara playing dirty, and it really annoys me. And yes, I know that Danto is definitely a goner and that Yotanwa could survive this depending on where she was hit, but she is definitely out of commission for the rest of this campaign. Fair play to Riboku, he took one of the biggest pieces off the board on the very first day with relative ease, but this was almost too easy. But this just begs the question, what will happen on that battlefield now? Needless to say, the mountain tribes will have to rework their entire plan, their entire formation, pretty much everything. Even if they continue to fight without the queen, this could go a lot of ways that I can't even list them. I don't know where we'll come back, but after that news spreads, they'll just try and survive the rest of the day, and then that night, it'll just be a pissing contest between the other chieftains saying that they should take command. Some will want to leave, some will want to stay, some will want to fight and get revenge, though I suppose the biggest question is, who will take command of the mountain forces? Now, my default thought is Baggio. He has been Yotanwa's right-hand man since the very first time we met them. However, Baggio is not big on words, but he is exceptionally loyal no matter what his role may be in the future. I think it is fairly safe to say that he will go into an absolute berserker state once he hears about Yotanwa. Then there are other possibilities like Katari of the Mera tribe. She is a great warrior, a great leader, and respected by the other chieftains. It won't be Old Man Empo or one of those Quan Rong commanders. Danto would have probably been the best option, really, when you think about it. But honestly, there is a part of me that would think that Heki would have been the best option to take command of the mountain forces if he was still with the mountain army. He is highly liked and respected by the mountain tribes and is very familiar with their forces, and above all else, Yotanwa trusted him and the other mountain tribes trusted him after fighting side by side with him for so long. You take their strength and mix them in with his fundamental tactics, then you will still have a fiercely strong army. But if I was a wishful dreamer, then I would want the entire southern line of this invasion to be remade. Have Mu-10 take over the entire southern line and fight alongside the mountain tribes taking on the forces of Ganmon. Just picture it. His genius strategies, their ferocity, or should I say their extra ferocity, wanting to get revenge for Yotanwa and Danto, and that will undoubtedly become the most beautifully chaotic battlefield in this entire war. We know the Ganmon army specializes in taking on mountain tribes, but we also know that when presented with a true challenge, that is when Mu-10's talent truly shines. And besides, Mu-10 deserves a challenge and a shock after he said in chapter 854 that it should be an easy fight. I thought that was very arrogant of him. And even just from a writer's point of view, can you imagine the spectacle of that battle? You have a father and son fighting side by side, an army of ruthless, revenge-hungry individuals, and a battle of wits, tricks and strategy between Mu-10 and Shunshuiju. Nobody can argue that that would be absolutely beautiful. That would be peak of the peak. That could really be the top battlefield of this entire war, aside from the Shin Riboku one. It's something that would be so far you could actually just make a whole arc about that one battle. I genuinely cannot say enough how much I would love that. But sadly, all of our wishes don't always come true. And so Kingdom fans, I think that is all I have to say about this chapter. Needless to say, this leaves us with nothing but questions and in absolute suspense, but this is why we keep coming back, because Hara is a master of storytelling with few people that can match him. Remember to hit that like and subscribe button down below, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next one.